Hello, 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 everybody.
Hello.
We are live and so excited today to be here with the amazing Scott Betley, who everybody knows of as that mortgage guy. Scott, I am going to give you an official introduction, but I wanted to start our conversation first with just your kids coming home and you making us feel like me with kiddos. It's just so normal by having kids and dogs and all those fun things. So,
Yeah, hopefully
anyways,
that dog doesn't break through the door in the middle of our live, but if he
well, if
doesn't,
they
great.
do, there'll be so many people that can relate to you. So
Yeah,
we love it. We love it, love it. Well, I don't want to keep anybody waiting any longer. We have such a great show for you today, where we will be talking about the current NAR lawsuit and what Scott thinks about that. Then he's going to dive into some of the things that he is doing for his client relationships to make sure that they really have that white glove care, which he does in a very unique way. And then we're going to wrap this live up today with how Scott has created such a huge following on social media. So, before we dive right in with Scott, let me introduce him. He has generated $200 million in loan volume closed in the last 2 years. He has generated over 32,000 leads through organic content on social media, which is just absolutely incredible. He's got over 1.1 million followers across all of his social media channels, has had over 9,000 applications submitted from all of those through his social media. He is co-created and is VP of the first influencer division in mortgage, the Creator Collective, powered by NFM Lending. And lastly, he has over a decade in business, helping home buyers and growing a brand. So, Scott, we are so lucky to have you. Karis and I, and our Women in Real Estate group, and all of our audience across the channels are really excited to hear from you today. So, if you wouldn't mind us jumping right into what I think everybody is so nervous about, is talking about when it comes to the NAR lawsuit and just what your thoughts are with that and what you're seeing on your side.
yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the intro. That was great. When it comes to the lawsuit, and there's so much unknown, like no one has the crystal ball. Obviously, we're waiting on the status of the injunctive relief and what the judge is going to say and like what the direction of all this is. But for me, it's like at the end of the day, it's putting all of us in a position, loan officers included, where we all need to hone in on our processes, our buyer consults, what we're pouring into our clients, how we're educating them. It all matters. And, we really have to be thoughtful about that and start to lean into that more, because we really have to service these people. And at the end of the day, if you're not providing the service and, not consulting with these people and pouring education into them, I don't know how you're going to survive in this market if it does pivot to a situation where buyers have to pay their buyer agent commission. So that's my 2 cents on it. But there's just so much unknown. Unfortunately, no one has the crystal ball and knows where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any recommendations for people who are buyers agents specifically, and things that they should be setting like expectation wise with their clients now to make sure that standard is good for by the time if something happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a lot of partners who are already discussing this with their clients, and kind of getting ahead of the curve to some extent. It's not something that we've seen, set in stone. I haven't seen any clients, where the seller has balked at the buyer's agent commission yet. I'm sure it's to come. But, for me, I don't think that there's going to be as much of a shift. I guess we'll see how it plays out. But I feel like at the end of the day, with the injunctive relief, it would be very simple to add an addendum to the contract that's more clear, more concise, and it's setting this expectation up front and disclosing it to these sellers and, these people. So, for my clients and what we're doing, I would just urge everyone to really lean into your service, what you're offering your clients. Like, for instance, my team, we just revamped our entire buyer consult process. And now we're spending about 3 hours on the front end before our borrower is even pre-approved and like starts actually shopping. And it's just, we wanted to enhance every facet of the process and just be able to provide the white glove service, like what Chrissy mentioned. And so that's something that I would urge everyone to look at, and maybe look at your business from the outside in and try to look at it through the lens of the consumer and, really go through what it is that you're actually pouring into them, because deals have been so plentiful for the last 2 years. It was like fish in a barrel for 2020, 2021. And it's now a time where we have to sell, we have to shine, and you've got to improve like every facet of your business. So that's my angle on it. And there's going to be a lot of opportunity that comes from this as well. Like, you're looking at the industry where we have, I think, 1.6 million realtors across the US. And it's going to put many of those onesie twosie agents in a position where they may get out of the business. They may look at other opportunities just because it's going to be much more difficult for them to survive, if it does go the route where, buyers have to pay the agent commission. So I guess we'll see where it goes. But
Well, when we had Brookley on from Housing Wire a couple weeks ago, and she was giving us some just very technical aspects of the lawsuit and some of the different ways that things could go. And like you said, we don't know what those judgments are. But one of the things that we thought was it was a surprise that she had said was for us to really reach out to our lenders and make sure that we have a strong relationship with our lenders as real estate agents. So from your perspective, how do you feel like agents could facilitate that type of relationship with their preferred lender? How can they reach out and help be a part of that white glove service, possibly for their clients before they're even pre-approved? Or where do you even feel like we would be able to fit in as agents to help facilitate this kind of new normal?
I'm a big fan of us staying in our own lanes and like focusing on what we're good at. I have so many agents that come to me where they want hours of education on the lending side. I'm like, let us focus on what we do and you focus on what you're good at. But I think as far as the relationship is concerned, just having cohesion around your process and making it as seamless as possible. Obviously, communication is key, but more cohesion that you can have there is just going to turn into a stronger, process for the borrower and the client experience. So, I mean, I'm trying to think off the cuff, but that's all that I would really say about that. It's just the cohesion and really making sure that your systems and processes are honed in. You guys are on the same page, just because that can cause issues when it comes to transactions.
Do you feel like there are 1, 2, or 3 different things that agents either should know or that they do unknowingly that could make this cohesion and this relationship smoother that would just help that?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe on the front end, setting some more expectations with the clients, getting a clearer understanding of their financial position and where they're at, maybe their credit scores, just so you have an idea of, what the next steps look like, if this is even a viable deal, and with us on our side, our team is huge on financial literacy. So as far as our services are concerned, we offer everything from credit repair to, we have a program that's called Road to Home, where we have people that come in through the influencer ecosystem that, have rougher credit, they have gaps of employment, they have issues when it comes to income. And we've developed a number of different programs to be able to nurture them and pour education into them and financial literacy. And that has been a big component of, our success online, and just being able to have an ecosystem where we can help any borrower that comes in the door. That's kind of been our angle on it.
So going into that process of working with the buyers, what does that look like in terms of, with everything going on right now, with interest rates being higher? Obviously that did and still continue to scare a lot of people with wanting to make that step. Now, of course, as real estate professionals, we all know the difference of, what the media is putting out. But from a lending side, what kind of advice do you have for agents in terms of what they can then voice to their clients about everything going on in the market right now with the rates and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of articles out there. There's a lot of speculation. Like I put out a video yesterday about the rates and the inflation numbers that came out last week. But the reality is, with these higher rates, it's created a lot of opportunity for buyers. And for me and my family, we literally just purchased our new primary residence 3 months ago because I firmly believe, and I take the stance of this. So I have so many people that comment on my social media is like, of course he's going to tell you to buy a house. He's a lender, but I'm the one actually buying a house right now. So I believe in this. But basically, the rates have been elevated for so long that it has decreased buyer demand drastically. And I don't know if you saw the data from last week, but over 35% of sellers across the United States are giving seller concessions right now to sell their home, which is something that we did not see in 2021. And the reality is as these interest rates continue to creep down, like we saw over the course of the last week, like 2 weeks ago, I was literally quoting an 8.625% rate. And now it's closer to the low sevens to the high sixes. So the shift happened fairly quickly. But, if over the next 4 to 7 months, we see these rates continue to drip down, I think once we're in the mid fives to maybe low sixes, we're going to see buyer demand explode. And it's just a question of how much, and how low the rates will go and how much it's going to stimulate the buyer's market. And I think, we saw it in 2021. The competition was outrageous. Offers were coming in $50,000 to $150,000 over list price, depending upon the price point. People were waiving home inspections. People were waiving appraisals. And it was just a completely different market. And so if you're in that position and you're talking to a client who's on the fence, I would break that down for them and show them the real numbers, because the reality is when these rates come down, the prices are going to go up. And there's a lot of information on the internet that supports that. Like, I don't know if you guys have followed, like, for instance, Barbara Corcoran, she has dropped several articles on this, as well as a number of other experts and economists. But it's just simple supply and demand. That's it. So that's been our stance on it.
That's really helpful to know, because I think that, again, on the agent side, it can feel a little scattered. Like the market is like, what is it doing, right? One day it's one way, one day it's another way. So do you have any advice on how agents can plug into certain resources you just mentioned a couple of them, to help them stay up to date and current on what's going on and navigating, this turbulence in the market right now?
Yeah, there's a few resources that I turn to daily. Like Housing Wire is an awesome resource. They put out a lot of great information that's quality and it's reliable. Mortgage News Daily is also a great resource. They're more on the lending side, as far as like average nationwide rates and, information in the bond market and mortgage-backed securities and how it's actually impacting interest rates. But those are the two primary ones that I use. There's a few other, systems out there like that are geared more towards the content creation side that I use. But as far as, true resources on the news side, it's pretty much those two that I turn to.
That's great. I have a question, because I know a few people asked this that they wanted to ask you was, what do you say, or what is your response to the comments that people say when they're like, you're a real estate agent, you're a loan officer, of course you would say now is a good time to buy a house. What is your response to that comment?
My response is I put my money where my mouth is, because I literally just bought a house 3 months ago. I have a 7.625% interest rate. It's not pretty, but the reality is I got this house for $800,000. It overappraised by $75,000. We were able to get a home inspection and negotiate close to $50,000 in repairs. Like there was $35,000 just in mold remediation, which was something that would not have happened in a 2021 market, or fast forward 8 to 12 months when buyer demand has exploded because the rates have come down. So it's something to consider. And, that's what I say is, I put my money where my mouth is, because we literally just bought, and I'm not just saying it, like I'm actually following through with it myself.
Definitely. That's amazing that you got that.
It really is.
Happen if the rates were 5%.
Well, like when these rates come down, a lot of these people are saying, these experts are saying that we should see appreciation between 7 to 15% that within that first year when it comes down, because buyer demand is going to explode, which is going to translate to higher offers, people offering over list price, waiving inspections, waiving appraisals, so it's for me, I would much rather pay a little bit more in interest rate now and be able to refinance in the next 1 to 2 years versus being in a position where I have to pay $50,000 to $100,000 over list price and be walking into a property where I have no idea what sort of issues are tied to it because I can't have a home inspection if you want to compete in that market. So
I'm actually in that situation right now with a house under contract, and I don't think the seller got a home inspection right in that period where it was really hot market, and now she's very shocked of all the things that have come back. So it's the mold remediation, all of that. I mean, those costs add up. That if you don't expect that beforehand, then it can be a bad hole to be in.
Yeah, and I've seen some data from people who bought in 2021 because that was like the norm. That year, everyone was waiving inspections, everyone was waiving their appraisals, they were offering over list price. And now we're seeing a lot of those people that are 2 years in where a lot of these issues have uncovered. And I've seen some that are selling them and they're having to take a loss because they have all of these issues that they were unaware of. So it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah. And that process, can you just give step by step of how that kind of works for people who maybe they're newer to the industry and things? I know with a lot of obviously people who are new to real estate, of how that works for when someone gets an interest rate now, how it works with that refinance later on. Can you just give a little summary on that just so that they can go and echo that to potential clients?
Yeah, 100%. So there's a number of different programs out there. There's programs like the FHA Streamline program, the HARP program, which was more of a thing back when home values had dipped and people owed more on their homes than what they were actually worth. So there's relief programs out there where even if home values dropped, you could still refinance, and there are rate reduction options that don't require an appraisal. And then there's other programs that do require an appraisal. There's honestly a plethora of options out there. And it also depends on what financing you have, like an FHA loan, or do you have conventional, or do you have a VA loan, because they have the VA Streamline program. So there's a number of different programs, but one thing our company rolled out this year, which has been super helpful for a lot of our home buyers, is we have a refinance pledge where it's good for up to 5 years from when they close. And it essentially says that when and if the interest rates drop, we're going to notify them. And our company is waiving all of the lender costs associated with the refinance process, which is normally, $2,500 to $5,000. And it makes it so that it's just a rate reduction type loan. So that's something that we've been doing, and we've been, providing to all of our clients and just giving them reassurance, because the reality is these rates are not going to be at this level forever. The Fed has been hiking the federal funds rate to combat inflation. And with the inflation numbers that came out last week showing things are cooling off, we're headed in the right direction. And it's just a matter of time before they come down.
Definitely.
And I think that just even having these types of conversations where we are talking about strategy and about facts and about what's really happening in the market instead of just everybody's opinions. We were talking about this before, huh, Karis, where it was like everybody has their opinion about what's going on, but what factually is happening and how can you build your strategy within, the current situation so that you come out ahead in the end. Mm-hmm. And I think that you've explained it really well, Scott, of how, you can take the knowledge that you have and build that strategy so that it makes sense. Like, okay, well, why would it make sense to buy a house right now? And to really help people understand that process, it takes a lot of fear out of just having and feeling like you're having an emotional decision.
Yeah.
Or not making a decision based off of, oh my gosh, we've kind of been taught that you don't buy a house with a high interest rate.
Yeah.
Might not be any logic behind that,
Yeah, and there's so many keyboard warriors out there that are like, "Oh my God, the market's crashing,"
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Have you actually looked at the data? Like foreclosures are down drastically. Like, go look at the data." So yeah, I am a big advocate of leaning into the data just because that's where the information is. So that's yeah,
Yeah,
like
facts are better than opinions.
It
yeah,
is.
100%.
I think it would be good at this point to transition over into the social media piece of it, because I know that that is something that you are very well known for, Scott, with over 1 million people in your audience, which is insane that you've grown so quickly. So can you briefly touch on your journey that you've been from getting onto social media, where you started, and then where you are today?
Yeah, so it started in 2019, and obviously growing up as a millennial, I was in the social media world. Like I had MySpace and Facebook, and I was like heavily into music when I was younger. So I did like a bunch of different video content on YouTube. So I definitely had some skills and strategy that I already had just from tinkering and playing around over the years. But in 2019, I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, who I'm a huge fan of, and he was just raving about the organic reach on TikTok. And so I went on there, started playing around with it, and I think it was like my 26th video that had gotten 400 or 500,000 views overnight. I gained almost 10,000 followers, and that was, I want to say, like January of 2020. And then over the course of 2020, I really started to build just strategy and structure around how to really make this a core component to my business and really be consistent and do it at scale. But that was how it all started. And over the course of 2020, I think I have garnered about 250 to 300,000 followers through TikTok. And then in 2021, I started to leverage that following to start creating like some spillover to Instagram and Facebook. And in the same time frame, Mark Zuckerberg was watching TikTok closely and the success that they were experiencing. And I don't know if you guys saw, he came out like in the last quarter of last year and basically said that his goal by Q3 of this year was to crush TikTok views with Facebook Reel views and Instagram Reel views. So it was like perfect timing for me because I had been building the skill set of short form video content, which was somewhat of a new thing on socials. I mean, granted, we had like Instagram TV, but it wasn't like what TikTok and Vine were. So it was like the perfect timing for me because I had all the content and I could just redistribute it across Facebook, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and all of them had pivoted at that point to compete with TikTok because this is like the evolution of content and where we are at this point in time. So over the course of the last year and a half, I've built my Instagram following. I think I'm at like 120,000 followers on Instagram, roughly like 90,000 on Facebook. And I literally have done that just through repurposing my content from TikTok. So it's not like I create separate content for the platforms. Granted, it's somewhat, excuse me, it's somewhat, organized as far as when I post it on TikTok and when it's posted to the other platforms. Like I'm not posting all my videos at the same time, but that is how I've done it, and it's been unbelievable. I never thought that I would have over 1 million followers from posting mortgage content. It's nuts.
It's incredible to hear that because it's only been a few years that you've built that, and it's set you up now that you've got this incredible audience that you've built that trust with. Chrissy and I talk so much about the power of video and how you probably get the same thing where people contact you and it's like they've already watched your videos, they already have that automatic trust that they've built, that know, like, and trust factor, just because they've watched all your videos, which is, it's incredible. And so where do you see yourself and everything you've built going over the next few years or in 2024?
I'm working on a ton of different things behind the scenes. Obviously, with my mortgage division, like we're really focusing on scaling and growing our team to hopefully like 40 to 50 influencers nationwide. Right now, we have about 15, and we'll close about 15 to 20 million a month in volume, sometimes more depending upon the month and what we have going on as a team. But our goal is to scale that. Like we would like to be in, the 500 to $1 billion like total loan volume range, which is what we're working towards. But then there's so many other things that come with the attention, like with me being in the space and the average age of the loan officers being around 47, and it's very similar on the realtor side. There's so many people in the industry that do not understand socials. They don't want to, they don't want to go in and tinker around. They don't feel comfortable on camera. And I feel like there's a huge opportunity for practitioners in our space to be able to coach others and provide real strategy through like what we've built through trial and error and what has worked and what hasn't. So that's something that I've been focusing on lately and working on behind the scenes, just because you look at the industry and I think I can think of maybe like 30, 40 people on the realtor side and mortgage side that are like really producing content at scale consistently who are successful with it. So I'm excited to see where that goes, like the coaching side and being able to pour into others, because this is really my passion. Is like, I'm a marketer, and granted, I'm good at doing loans and I have a team that is unbelievable, but like my passion is with marketing for sure.
That's great.
Well, I was going to say that's really exciting to hear. I mean, I know that Karis and I could probably pummel you with a ton of questions, because that is our passion as well. I mean, we really enjoy, coaching and helping people get over their certain issues and challenges when it comes to making video content, social media, and all that fun stuff. But you mentioned being the average age of 47 and what that means. And I was just having a conversation with Karis today about I turned 46 today. People that are in my generation or older, there's a lot more that comes with making content than just making content, right? Like, how do you put yourself out there and not have it be perfect? How do you figure out what you're going to say and articulate it and all of that stuff? So, do you have any tips or suggestions about just encouraging people? Because I think that people have finally gotten the message that they know that making content is important. But now what? Right? Like, now what?
Yeah, it's for me, it's just like anything else. We were all scared to drive the car when we first started driving. We were all scared of a number of different things until we actually got into it and started playing with it and tinkering and figuring it out. It's just like anything else. And to your point, like the branding side of things, as we go into the next decade of this business and as the social media game evolves, having a brand is just going to be so important, especially with all this stuff going on with NAR and, how much we really have to shine on the service side and what we actually provide to our clients. It is going to be so important. And as far as, tips are concerned, I would say, try to build some structure around this for yourself. I don't know how you guys handle it, but I've tried to just become really strategic and thoughtful about how I have incorporated it into my schedule, just because it is such a big component to my day. But like time blocking it in and having, moments where you can prepare for it. Like, for instance, every night, instead of watching Netflix with my wife, I'll spend 1 to 2 hours on TikTok or on Instagram and use it as like my creative time to be able to come up with content for the next day or for the week, where I'm saving trends. Like I'm doing some homework, figuring out what direction I want to take the video, the captions, the filming, all of that stuff. And so the preparation is just so key. And I think that's something that's really overlooked. Like, people go to sit down to film a video and they have no idea. And the pressure that comes from that shines through on the video that you're producing, because it feels somewhat forced. You don't know what you're going to say or the direction that you're going to go. And so I think the more structure you can build around that and preparation, the better, and that's, I think, been a big proponent of the success that I've seen.
Absolutely. And the time piece of it is something that a lot of people have that response of, I don't have time for it. But the way it needs to be reframed of, it's not important to me to make time for it.
Correct.
When it is something that is part of your business, then you will make time for it. So that excuse needs to be out the window. And the thing is that when people are starting out and they're not getting leads from it, they're not getting clients from it, of course they're going to feel like it's not worth their time. However, all of us with social media who are now doing something, we all started from zero. We all started with making, all these videos and not seeing any sort of results from it. Like Chrissy, you always say, like, you were making your YouTube videos for 7 months before she got her first client, but then she got like client, all like over $1 million. So that process of putting that work in before you see any results, it's just something that has to be done. So it's like building all of that up. It takes time. It takes practice. A lot of us, like, okay, some skills may be easier to obtain than other people on camera. But at the end of the day, learning how to use an app, optimization, SEO, like descriptions, hashtags, all that content research, like it's all aspects of that you have to put time in. It's part of the business. If that's what you want to actually do, is get clients from your social media.
It's so true. No, it's definitely a longer term play, but you look at it from the stance of like, now every at bat on social media is a potential for you to have millions of views from that one video. And that's what's so cool about the world of social media right now, is the performance of your video is now based on the merit of the content and the value that it provides to the viewer. So that's what's so cool is like, you look back 10 years ago and a lot of the attention was limited to those who had significant followings, because that's how the content was pushed to their followers and that's what they saw. Whereas right now you can go on TikTok with no followers, post your first video and get millions of views on it, thousands of people following you. And that's like the beautiful part of where we are in the attractiveness of it. It's just totally different from what we've seen in the past. And how many calls would you have to make to have 1,000 views or 2,000, like the 2,000 views that you get on your average video that you post? How many calls would you have to make to get that message out to those people? It's just another tool to be able to market yourself, and it's free. So why would you not use it?
And that's something Gary Vaynerchuk talks a lot about.
Oh yeah.
He's like, it's free attention. Why would you not use it? It's so true.
It blows my mind.
Yeah. I think we're all fans of his for sure. I mean, I've just been binging all his videos, and definitely helps encourage you to start at least pushing yourself. I know for Karis and I, we continually try to figure out, how can we push ourselves further? How can we do better? How can we scale more? And a question that I have, and then there are some questions in the comments for you, Scott. So I want to get to those as well. But how do you connect your social media with your business? And making sure that you are marketing and have time set aside on the marketing side, but you also have time set aside on the fulfillment and the nurture side. Do you have some tips on that?
Yeah, I mean, just as far as like the cadence and what we do, our team, we focus heavily on providing value and education, similar to, Gary Vee's jab, right hook, value, ask for the business. We tend to be like value, then ask for the business. And that's the reality of like this game, is you have to put out content that is not selfish to your brand, where you're not asking for the sale every time. Like, you've got to be pouring education and value into your community. And that is just such a big piece to it. Like, I see so many creators, especially on the real estate side, where they're posting their closings, congratulating John, or posting their newest listing, which is great. And I totally get that. But that needs to be like 20% of your content and your cadence. Like, you really have to be thoughtful about the value that you're putting out there, because that's where the reach comes from. That's where the engagement comes from, and the followers. And then that eventually translates to a sale. It's not something that happens immediately.
Yeah, it builds up for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Well, I know that that's really helpful. And we have questions for you. This first question is from Jenny. I don't know if you can see the screen, but I will read it. Can the buyer build the agent commission into their purchase price, and would that affect their appraisal?
I don't know, outside of like a lender credit where we would give like a credit or, being able to use concessions to be able to cover that cost. I'm not certain on the compliance side if that's something that we would be allowed to do unless it's a situation where the property overappraised and maybe we could do an addendum to the contract, adding in a concession, and writing it at a slightly higher purchase price because it did come in higher, and being able to cover that difference to be able to cover that cost. That would be the only few ways that I would see that working. I just, from a compliance standpoint, I just don't know that there's a way to do that.
It sounds like there's going to be a lot of logistics that will have to be worked out, if and when things, well, we should probably say when things change drastically, there's going to have to be quite a bit of
it's going to be based on
technicalities worked out.
Based on your state you're in, the country you're in, like everything is just going to be location dependent as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Speaking of location, Lisa had a question of, are you nationwide?
Yeah, so we're a nationwide lender. The only state we don't service is New York, but we actually have loan officers with my division that are, I want to say we're in like 16 out of 50 states. So we actually have boots on the ground in a lot of these areas. And then a lot of the loan officers have, licenses in other states that they service remotely. But because we have such a strong direct to consumer brand, it's been one of those things where we've built this complete sales funnel. When the lead comes in, it gets assigned to a loan officer. We have a lot of admin support and our call center team that's scrubbing these leads just to make sure when it gets to, one of our LOs, it's a qualified client that has a shot. But I'm losing track. I just went off on a tangent. I totally lost track of where I was going.
Good.
No, you were helping us figure out well, number one, if you were a nationwide lender, but you also were talking about just your process. And I think that's, another great insight for us and our audience of just really understanding technically, how does this work? And so you just explained that. So it's very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. My kids woke me up super early this morning. So okay. I feel like I'm like half asleep right now, but
I told you that would be so helpful. I told you there are going to be so many people that comment on this, either live or in the replay, that are just so thankful, Scott, that you're like so many of us that are hanging on by a thread.
So I'm with you.
I love it.
Speaking of the content creation piece of it, and the people who feel like they don't have time, whether it be because of kids, maybe they work another job, or maybe they're at the point that they want to make content, but they see, for example, where you are, and it's up here, and they know they're starting from zero. What advice or main thing would you tell someone of jumping in and just making those videos and getting started?
Yeah, I mean, I would spend some time familiarizing yourself with these platforms, and just figuring out like how you want to position your brand. I would spend 15 to 20 hours consuming content and figuring out different nuances, how different creators do it, what styles of content are out there, and figure out, your cadence, like your content strategy as far as what styles you want to pour into your brand, like green screen videos, stitches. Do you want to hit trends? Do you want to do more formal content that's higher end and post-produced? And then I think you have to start to build structure around how you really want to implement this and how you want to make it a part of your schedule. Like there's people on our team who will film and they'll have content days once or twice a month, and they'll time block it in, they'll batch film everything, and then they're done. Whereas for me, like I like to be a little bit more nimble with my content, just because like there's so many different things that are going on any given week, where I like to be able to like pivot. Like yesterday when I had all these articles coming out about the inflation and how there's likely going to be Fed rate cuts in 2024. Those are the things where if you're like batch filming and doing it all 2 weeks ago, where your content can become a little outdated to some extent, where you're not tapping into the current events. But we have people that do it a whole bunch of ways. Like for instance, Glenda Baker, she literally films one time every single month. She has a video editor that comes to her house, films like 30 to 50 videos, and then she's done. She doesn't have to worry about anything. And we have people on our team that do that weekly, people that do it like 2 or 3 times a week where they will batch film. So I think it comes down to how you want to do it, what works best for you and your schedule. But that's where I would start, is trying to build structure around it and figuring out how you want to position your brand and, what that looks like.
Yeah. That is so helpful. Karis, did you have any last questions that you wanted to ask?
No, that was my main thing that I wanted to ask. Yeah.
Karis is our social media. I don't know. She just is our inspiration. So to see you two together in a room, I think is such a treat. And we are so grateful that you have carved out some of the time in your day. But just to wrap things up, do you have any last either tips or suggestions or anything that you would want to share with the audience before we sign off?
I'll leave you guys with something, a little nugget. The 3 forms of content that we're really focusing on with our team are green screen videos, stitches, and there's a whole bunch of variations to what a stitch is. So if you guys have questions about this, feel free to DM me on Instagram and we can talk offline. And then the trends, there's so many different nuances to the trends. Like you've got cap cuts, you've got trending sounds, you've got dances, you've got skits, all sorts of things that kind of fall under that category. But those 3 styles of content are performing very well right now and something that we're focusing on in 2024. So green screen, stitches, and trends.
I love it. You got to be creative nowadays. There's so many more creators on the app than it was in 2020. There's TikTok shop, there's sponsored posts. And now you've got to be creative in order to get seen by people. Great tips there.
It's so true. And you have to stay on the pulse of this. Like this is ever evolving. You look at what the content looked like a year ago and what it looks like now. It's only going to continue to evolve. So that's why like the consuming side and staying on top of what is on the platform is just so important. Like you've got to stay on the pulse of it.
Well, Scott, we really appreciate everything that you've shared with us today and helping us be more focused on our systems, on marketing, and being strategic with our time and our priorities. So you are just fantastic. Would you mind sharing where everybody can find you, follow you, and make sure that we're supporting you on all platforms?
Yes, thank you. If you guys search That Mortgage Guy on Google, you guys will find me anywhere on the platforms as well. Just search That Mortgage Guy. You'll find me.
Love it.
Well, we definitely will. We definitely will. Well, thank you so much. And we want to thank everybody else for joining us today live and or watching the replay. And we will see you all next time.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Scott.
See you guys.